What is up, everybody? Welcome to DFS by the Numbers. These are my DraftKings MMA picks for UFC 291. We got Dustin Poirier going against Justin Gaethje.
I need all the wins, yeah. All that and all that is. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out.
And we are back for another DraftKings MMA picks video. This week we are breaking down an absolute stacked card. We got UFC 291, a card that I'm very much looking forward to from a betting perspective, from a DraftKings perspective, and a fan perspective as well. I think we have a stacked card, like every single fight I'm looking forward to. And it makes for a very good DraftKings card as well. I think we're going to get a lot of finishes, a lot of high scores, and I cannot wait to break it down for you guys. Before we get into the video, if you guys can please leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate it a ton. Also, be sure to sign up on dfsbythenumbers.com. There you will find all my other content that is not shown on YouTube. The stats you see Friday, Saturday, the targets, the rankings, the projections, the DFS article, the optimizer, and much, much more. Be sure to check all of that out. Be sure to also check out Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code at DFSBTN. I'll be going through my favorite Underdog play mid-show. Last week we hit the Lerone Murphy higher on the significant strikes, and we'll see if we can hit the one this week here as well. Prize Picks content is coming out today as well. Going to record that right after this video. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from the Prize Picks content, and to keep getting that out. Had a pretty good week last week, 8 for 10, 80%, not bad at all. So I say we get into it, and we're going to start with the fight doesn't go to decision lines. We have 4 up here, and I think all 4 of these probably do finish inside the distance, and all 4 of these should be targeted. We're going to start with Marcos Rogério de Lima going against Derek Lewis, and we have the fight doesn't go to decision anywhere from minus 450 to some books have like minus 600. It is a fight that I do think finishes. I think finishes probably under 1.5 rounds. 5 of Lewis's last 6 fights have ended under 1.5 rounds, and it seems like at this point of his career, he's starting to be more aggressive, which is something I would have liked to see, earlier in Lewis's career. But, the fact that he is being so aggressive, I think it's kind of to his detriment. He's getting caught, he's getting hurt, and I don't think Derek Lewis has the best durability, especially at this point of his career. Derek Lewis has been finished 9 times. So Lewis is an underdog like a Paul Craig. I mean, you can never, ever ignore a guy in Derek Lewis who is one of the hardest, if not the hardest hitters in the heavyweight division. Do I think he's, towards the end of his career? Probably, but this is a big step down in competition, and he has so much power that he could knock out Marcos Rogério de Lima. This is a fight that I'm going to target pretty heavily. I'm going to have more de Lima here. I think de Lima does finish this fight in the first round. I think the leg kicks are going to give Lewis a lot of problems, but like I said, Derek Lewis is a live dog against anybody in the world. So very, very good fight to target, and a fight that I think does finish inside the distance, and the odds heavily do indicate that. Moving on, we got Gabriel Bonfim going against Trevin Giles. Minus 400 for the fight doesn't go the distance. And yeah, I like Bonfim here quite a bit. You're going to hear me talk about him a couple times in the video here. He's sitting at 9,200. This is a guy who is 14-0. All 14 of those wins coming inside the distance, going against Giles, who has 4 losses, and all 4 of those losses come inside the distance. 2 by sub, 2 by knockout, which is funny because Bonfim can knock you out, and he can also sub you. I think Bonfim has like 10 or 11 submission wins on his record. We saw Cummings submit Giles in the 3rd round. We saw Mearshart submit Giles in the 3rd round. And I think Bonfim submits Giles. Could be in any round, but, at 9,200 with this much finishing upside, this guy is so dangerous. I'm very high on Gabriel Bonfim, and I'm going to have quite a bit of him. As far as Trevin Giles, I mean, could he pull off this upset? I mean, I don't know. I think Bonfim would have to maybe gas out, and I don't know if that's all that likely. And even if Giles does pull off this upset, I don't see it being like a knockout. I see it probably being like a decision. So I'm going to be more on the Bonfim side. I think, there's Giles at 7,000. I think there's a lot better plays just around him in terms of, pump plays with some upside. So I'm going to be more so on the Bonfim side here, and I'm going to have quite a bit of them. Next, we have Jake Matthews going against Darius Flowers. The fight doesn't go to decision, minus 250. We have Jake Matthews is 9,300 on DraftKings. So I like Matthews to win, but quite frankly, I kind of hate this price. Matthews, not much of a finisher, although I do think he does get a finish in this fight. I just think it's going to come, later in the fight after Darius Flowers gasses out. Darius Flowers is a guy that I question the gas tank in general, and then on top of that, he's coming in here on short notice. He's coming in here, at elevation. I expect Darius Flowers to go out there and give a very, very hard 3.5 to 4 minutes. and after that, I think he slows down massively. So I like Bonfim more than Matthews. I like somebody else we'll talk about more than Matthews. I'll have some, I think, but I think there are some better options. Whereas with Darius Flowers, he's super cheap, and his path to victory is literally like a 60-second knock. I mean, this guy has 60-second bonus upside, but in all reality, probably 3.5 to 4 minutes of cardio. But when this guy lands, he lands very, very hard. We've seen Matthews hurt plenty of times in the UFC. So I'll actually be playing some Darius Flowers here as a pump play. As far as Jake Matthews, I think he scores well. I think he probably wins. I think he probably finishes. But I just think there's some better options up top. Then we have Roman Kopylov going against Claudio Ribeiro. So there are 3 underdogs on this, I think maybe even 4. So we have Ribeiro. I think it's just, Ribeiro, Medic, and who's the other one? Salvador, Vinicius Salvador. They all have a 100% finish rate. Yeah, so Ribeiro, Medic, and Salvador. There we go. And then this is the first one here. In Ribeiro, he has a 100% finish rate. So although I think, Uris, Medic, I think Vinicius Salvador, and I think that, Claudio Ribeiro, all 3 lose, I think these guys do need to be targeted because they are very dangerous. And if they do win, it's probably early on in this first round. So for that reason, I'll have some Ribeiro. He's super cheap, and he's going to try to take off the head of Roman Kopylov. But I'm more so on the Kopylov side here. 9,000. I don't think he has first round finish upside. Like even outside the UFC, when he's finishing guys, it comes, off of attrition, second, third round typically. So, and he's not going to wrestle. So honestly, I'm not too high on Roman Kopylov for that reason, because I don't see him starching Ribeiro. If somebody's getting starched here in the first round, it's probably Ribeiro, knocking out Kopylov. So again, I think there's much better options in this high range. So I won't get to a ton of Kopylov. I don't think he's the worst play in the world, but I won't get to a ton of them. And then as far as Claudio Ribeiro, one of those guys with a 100% finish rate, I think he needs to be targeted, although I don't think he's that great, but he's dangerous nonetheless. Moving on to the core plays, we got Gabriel Bonfim, 9,200. We talked about him quite a bit. 100% finish rate in his wins. Giles has a 100% finish rate in his losses. Good power, phenomenal submission game, very opportunistic submission artist here. If this fight hits the mat, it's probably over shortly after. Like I remember watching tape on Bonfim, and in pretty much every fight it was the same thing. Either he got a takedown, his opponent got a takedown, or he got a knockdown. As soon as the fight hit the mat, it was over like a split second after. This guy's submission game is legit, and Giles has been submitted 2 times. So love me some Bonfim. He is my favorite play on the card, and I'm going to have quite a few of them. Dustin Poirier, 8,300. This main event is a must-target fight. I mean, I think it's one of those fights where I think on maybe a different slate, maybe with either less fights or fights that I think would score less. This might even be like a fight to stack, and even in tournaments. And I might even do some of that this week, because I think these guys are going to hit each other a ton. I mean, both these guys just have incredible volume. I slightly lean the Dustin Poirier side, and ever so slightly. But, I'm going to have a ton of Gaethje as well. My ownership is going to be pretty split here. I want to get about as 50-50 as possible. I don't really have one strong lean, but my strong lean is this is a must-target fight. I see in no world where this fight does not end up on the optimal lineup. I think, whoever wins this fight is probably going to put the biggest score on the night. And at these prices, 8,300 for Poirier, 7,900 for Gaethje, I think it's a fight that you absolutely have to have. So I'm going to be about 50-50, but I slightly lean Poirier. Marcos Rogerio de Lima, 8,500. We touched on him a little bit. I just think he has first-round knockout upside. This guy, Marcos Rogerio de Lima, has a ton of first-round finishes in the UFC, and I think Derek Lewis is kind of on his way out. De Lima has heavy leg kicks, tons of power in his hands, and I just think Derek Lewis is kind of fragile. I really don't like the way Derek Lewis reacts to shots, and Marcos Rogerio de Lima hits very, very hard. So I think De Lima wins this fight. I think he wins it in the first round, and if we can get a guy that's going to win in the first round at 8,500, I'll take that all day. So let me sim De Lima, 8,500. Matthew Semmelsberger, 8,600. Going to be a very, very popular play this week. His line got smashed on the money line all week. I got him at minus 148. He's like anywhere from minus 210 to minus 230 on some books. So very, very popular play, which is kind of scary, but we are getting some value here at 8,600 for a guy that is now minus 220, 230 favorite in this fight. A guy in Matthew Semelsberger that has 9 knockdowns in the UFC. A guy in Matthew Semelsberger who's taken on a very short notice Uros Medic in elevation. So I think Semelsberger wins this fight. I think he has more ways to win this fight, whether it's implementing the wrestling, kind of grinding this out, eventually getting the finish, or just simply starching Medic on the feet. I think, this guy can crack. So I love me some Semelsberger, 8,600. I think we're getting a pretty big discount at that price tag. Moving on to our tournament plays here, GBP Plays. We'll start with Miranda Maverick, 9,400. I'm hoping she's somewhat low owned here. We'll have to see. I don't think she's going to have like a ton of ownership, but when Miranda Maverick wins fights, she scores very, very, very good. And if she wins this fight, which stylistically it's a phenomenal matchup for her, she's going to score very, very, very good. We're talking takedowns, we're talking control time, we're talking ground and pound, and we're probably talking a submission win as well. So, like I said, I think she's going to be somewhat low owned, not like crazy low owned, but I'm going to have a decent amount of Miranda Maverick. I will absolutely be over the field on Miranda Maverick. We'll talk about Ketchaware in a little bit. I'll have some of her as well because her path is going to score good as well. But Miranda Maverick, her path is going to score phenomenally on DK with the takedown upside, and I think she can get a finish as well. Really good fight to target. I think this is the fight that's actually kicking off the card as well, which those are fights I typically do like to target. Last week we had the Jafel Filial fight where he put up a big score there. So yeah, really like Miranda Maverick, really like this fight as a whole to target. Kevin Holland, 8,400. I don't know how to feel about Kevin Holland here because I think he has finish upside. It's just, when is this finish going to come? If he gets taken down and controlled for an entire round against Chiesa and then finishes them in the second, how well is that going to score, right? So that kind of worries me a little bit, but, there's no doubt in my mind that I think Kevin Holland's very live to win this fight, very live to finish this fight, whether it is a knockout, whether it is a submission. So I'll have some Kevin Holland, but again, it just worries me that he can be taken down, he can be held down by Chiesa, and Chiesa is also somebody we'll talk about. But I think it's a solid fight to target, but probably not my favorite fight to target in the world. Jan Blachowicz, 8,200. Another great fight to target. Like, there's some very, very good fights to target on this card, and this is one of them. You have Blachowicz, Pereira, I want to say a striker versus grappler matchup, which, it kind of is, but, Blachowicz can absolutely strike. He can knock guys out as well. But Blachowicz's path to least resistance is going to be the grappling. If he's able to get this fight down to the mat, I think it makes it look pretty easy. I think he puts up a big score. I think he subs Alex Pereira. It just all comes down to whether or not, Jan Blachowicz is going to take that path of least resistance. If he goes out there and strikes with Pereira, do I still think he wins that fight? He could, but I don't recommend doing that. So if he goes out there and wrestles, I think he puts up a massive score here, and that's kind of what I'm banking on, but we'll talk about Alex Pereira as well. And then Bobby Green, 9,500. It's just one of those fights where I think he just could put up a clinic here on Tony Ferguson. And not that I think Bobby Green's like the most amazing fighter in the world. I'm not the biggest fan of the guy personally, but he's going against Tony Ferguson, who I just think is done. I've heard some people making some cases for Tony Ferguson, and I was one of those people initially. But after watching Ferguson's last fight back, absolutely not. He's now 39 years old at this point. I think he's more than on his way out. I don't even think this fight should probably be happening. So for that reason, I think Bobby Green, although not typically the best DraftKings scorer in the world, I could see him going out there and just landing like an astronomical amount of strikes and maybe even getting a late finish as well. So I don't hate some Bobby Green, 9,500, but I do like Maverick more, and I do like Bonfim more. Moving on to the underdog play of the week. Last week, we hit the Lerone Murphy higher on significant strikes. This week, we're going to try to hit some Dustin Poirier higher, 78.5 significant strikes here. I think he probably hits this in the second round. I mean, Dustin Poirier's very high volume. This fight's not touching the mat. These guys are going to hit each other in the face. They're going to kick each other's legs. They're going to go to the body. I mean, they're going to hit each other so many times. I think this probably hits in the late second round here. So give me Dustin Poirier higher than 78.5. If this doesn't hit, it's probably because there was an early finish. But I think both these guys are durable to at least get in that third round. So that's the underdog play of the week. We've been doing pretty well on these. If you want to check out Underdog, use the promo code DFSBTN for a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. It helps me out. It helps you out. And let's see if we can make some money. There's actually a lot of things sticking out on Underdog this week. All right, moving on to the live dogs. And I could even add more here. Like, there are some dogs that are going to be targeted this week. And here are the obvious ones. Michael Chiesa, 7,800. What does Kevin Holland struggle against? The answer to that is the wrestling, the grappling, and that's what Chiesa does. I do have some question marks about Chiesa in terms of the sub defense, where he's at in his career, but if Chiesa wins this fight, he's going to put up a massive score. So that cannot be ignored. So for that reason, I do like Chiesa, 7,800 as far as DraftKings goes. Alex Pereira, 8,000. It all comes down to the game plan of Blachowicz. If Blachowicz wants to strike with Alex Pereira, Pereira can either land a lot of volume or potentially get a knockout. This guy hits very, very hard. Blachowicz, super tough, super durable, only been knocked out once in the UFC, but that might not matter here if Pereira lands that big shot on Jan Blachowicz, who is now 40 years old. So Pereira is another live dog. I think he's going to be very popular, though. Gaethje, the most popular dog on the slate, and rightfully so. I think this is a close fight. I think it's about 50-50, to be honest, and I'm going to have about 50% Dustin Poirier, 50% Justin Gaethje. Whoever wins this fight is probably putting up anywhere from 110 to maybe 140. I mean, this could be a very, very high-scoring winner just because the volume is going to be crazy. The volume is going to be wild in this fight, and I think there is going to be a finish at some point in this fight. So, yeah, I think the winner puts up a very, very good score, and you got to have either Justin Gaethje or Dustin Poirier in your lineups. Derek Lewis, 7,700. Can never count out Derek Lewis. Derek Lewis hits very, very hard if it's a heavyweight fight. Like, if he lands a big shot into Lima, he could very well knock him out, right? So you have to have some Derek Lewis, although he has looked bad. I mean, his path to victory is probably a knockout here and probably early. And then some guys I didn't mention, but I mentioned earlier, these guys with those 100% finish rates. Vinicius Salvador, 7,200 or 7,500, a 100% finish rate. Uros Medic, 7,600, a 100% finish rate. And then Claudio Ribeiro, 7,200, a 100% finish rate. So, there are some very, very dangerous underdogs this week. Underdogs that I'm not picking to win per se, but underdogs, if they do win, it's probably a finish, and it's probably in the first round, and they're probably somewhat low owned. I mean, I don't think that Medic is going to have much ownership. Everybody's on Semmelsberger. I think Salvador will have some ownership, and I don't think Ribeiro is going to have much ownership either. So, I think it's going to be a lot of dogs sticking out this week. A lot of very, very good dogs sticking out this week. Let's move on to the pump plays. We got Darius Flowers, 6,900. We touched on him a little bit. This guy kind of reminds me of Derek Lewis, a guy that just explodes and with big combinations, big power. Jake Matthews, we've seen him hurt. We've seen him knocked down, and it shouldn't shock anybody if Flowers starts Jake Matthews in the very first round here. I think that's very much on the table. And at 6,900, I got to have some. And then Priscilla Cachoeira, another fighter that should never be counted out. It's a horrible matchup for her. You couldn't ask for a worse matchup for Cachoeira, but if she's able to stuff the takedowns, or if Maverick comes in here with a crap game plan, she's probably going to get a knockout. So, two very, very live pump plays here. I don't want to say live, but two pump plays where if they win, they're going to probably win by knockout. And then the fades, Stephen Thompson, 8,800. I really struggled to kind of find fades outside of Stephen Thompson. I think there's a lot of fighters in play this week, but yeah, Stephen Thompson, just an easy click for a fade. Zero wrestling upside, not much finishing upside, at least early. A lot of striking, a lot of distance management. Pretty easy fade for me there. But we did it. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys can leave a like on your way out. Subscribe to the channel. It is always much, much appreciated. I'm going to be going live Friday for the final thoughts video, and then live once again Saturday for some best bet. Check out Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code DFSBTN for a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. Same thing for Prize Picks, DFSBTN. And look out for that Prize Picks video that's going to be dropping Wednesday night as well. Best of luck for UFC 291. We'll talk to you guys very soon. See you later.